Hello, you guys. We are moving on to the sternum. So I want to show you the sternum on my no name here. This is a bone that is coming down the center here, and here I have it also. So this turns out that it's actually three separate bones. So I'm going to show you this very top bone. It sort of ends there. You can sort of see a line there. That's the manubrium. The rest is the body. And then in this lower section here, get this out of the way, is the xiphoid process. So you've probably heard of the xiphoid process before, because in CPR, this is where you're pushing and you want to be careful about not fracturing the xiphoid process. But in reality, if you want to keep the person breathing, go ahead and fracture the xiphoid process and have them breathe. So that's that third little bone here. And so together, eventually they fuse, and it looks like one big bone. The other structures you need to know on these are these notches. So a notch is this indentation here. We have one in the center, and then two other notches. So the jugular notch is the center notch. And then where the clavicle is going to come in are the clavicular notches. So that makes sense, right? Clavicular notches and jugular notch on the bone that's called the manubrium. Excellent. That's all we really need to look at on this bone. So this is a very simple bone to learn the structures of. And what we want to move on to are the ribs. So we're going to look at ribs here on no name. We really do need a name for this guy. And true ribs are ribs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And there's 12 altogether. So the first 7 are true ribs. Why? They're true ribs because they have their own connection, their cartilage connection onto the sternum. Beyond 7, they either share a cartilage connection onto the sternum or they don't have any at all. So do you see here how these are floating? So these last 2 are floating ribs. Floating ribs, 11 and 12. False ribs include those 2 from 8 to 12, and the others are true ribs. And that's all we're going to look at when it comes to ribs. And so what we want to look at next is the clavicle, your collarbone. The clavicle used to be the most commonly fractured bone in the body. No longer. Since skateboarding started. Now people land with their hand and they fracture their radius. Okay, so what we want to know about this bone is it a right or a left? So when I look at it like this, I want to show you that if I flip it, do you notice how the underside is rough? That rough is what is going to go in the lower position. So superior, inferior for the rough end. And then this curvature. It could go like this on you or like this. So we have to figure out, when you feel your own bone, whether it's curving out or whether it's curving in. And on him, it's hard to see in the angle that you're looking at it right there. Let's rotate him. So it actually curves out. So if it curves out and I keep that inferior, I would know that this is a left for me, the left clavicle. The structure that we need to understand from this is not very many, but we do have this sort of pointy edge there. You notice this pointy edge? I'll bring it over here. And that is called not a pointy edge. It's a tubercle. You can look at the vocab list posted for you. A tubercle is some sort of marking on a bone that indicates that a muscle is attached there and sort of pulled on it. So that is the cornoid tubercle. If you're looking at your list, read along. Cornoid tubercle. Then there's a flatter end. That flat end is a sternal end. And the more rounded end is the acromial end. And the sternal end, then you know, is the one that's going to be attached onto the sternum. It's good when those words make sense. All right, I am going on to more of the names that we need to learn. We're going to put away this bone, and we're going to go over to the scapula. So is this a right or a left? So we're going to have to check. We'll have to turn him around, or her, and we'll have to see if it fits here, or does it fit there? So this is actually a right. Because we know that it's here, we're going to look at the borders, and this, of course, is a superior border. If this is towards the center line of the body, this is the medial border, and this would be the lateral border. Superior, medial, and lateral borders. After that, we're going to look at the glenoid cavity, or the glenoid fossa. So this whole region here, I'll show you with the pencil, is where it's the socket for the arm. And that socket is called the glenoid cavity, or the glenoid fossa. Protruding here from the scapula is the spine. I can hold it there from the spine. Do you notice? It's easy to see here. Oh, there's a blade. This blade coming off the scapula is called the spine of the scapula. In order, after spine of the scapula, you have the coracoid process. So if I show this to you like this on the camera, I have these sort of two protrusions, this one and this one. One of them, this coracoid, is seemingly very close to the glenoid fossa. That is the coracoid process. Coracoid, crow-like, because it looks like the beak of a crow. In that position, it looks like the beak of a crow. Sort of weird to do on the camera. And then this other larger protrusion here is called the acromion process. So, coracoid process, acromion process, okay, of the scapula. Then we're going to look at, excuse me, two fossa, or fossae. One that's above the spine, and one that's below the spine. So if it's above the spine, it's supraspinous fossa, and below it's infraspinous fossa. Spinous coming from the spine. Supra, above, infra, below. The spine is here, so we're doing above the spine, below the spine, and then if I rotate, this whole region here is going to be the subscapular fossa. We just went through all the structures, and we're going to stop right there.